on what y'all thought about his list. All right. He just recently wrote an article listing his 5 most important Packers for the 2025 season. Here is his list. I'll start with number 1, and that is Mr. Jordan Love. The write-up says no player is more central to the Packers' success than quarterback Jordan Love. In 2024, his second year as a starter, Love displayed flashes of elite play, but was hampered by injuries and inconsistent support from a young receiving core. If we get time to break down a little tape, we're going to debunk a lot of Jaden Reed hate at the end of this show. We'll see if we got time. Despite ranking among the top 10 in metrics like EPA per play, his decision-making, footwork, and ball placement need refinement. Love's reluctance to scramble, partly due to injury, also limited his impact. If he can stay healthy, harness his mobility, and build on the potential in year 3, Love could unlock the full potential of Green Bay's offense. There's not a whole lot there. Matter of fact, not much there at all that I disagree with. I thought this was very, very well said. Jacob, since this was your idea, let's get your take right off the bat here, man. I love that he mentioned the injuries because it played a huge role. I love that he also mentioned the fact that Jordan Love still showed flashes of elite play at times from time to time.
Yeah, and when I brought this article to your guys' attention, I kind of said, let's maybe compile our own top 5, really top 4, because I feel like everybody's going to have Jordan Love. It almost is without question. And it has to be. It's like a filler spot, especially like you said, with Love coming off of maybe some people would say not as great a year as they would have wanted. Obviously, there was multiple injuries. He's got the leg injury, the groin injury. Remember that? Didn't his elbow get like randomly tapped too in the middle of one of the games, like super bad? I think that he did pretty good considering all of those, scenarios and adversity they had to deal with. And that big if, it's always a if he can stay healthy, harness his mobility, and build on this potential in year 3, Love could unlock full potential. I really do believe that. And it's a weird thing because as much as I do believe Jordan Love is stand down the most important person for this offense and for this team, I have a weird, quiet confidence that if the worst scenario happens, that Malik Willis is definitely a serviceable quarterback. But even with that, I don't think you can say that Jordan Love's not by far the most important part of this team.
Yeah. I mean, he stamped himself at number 1 on my importance list with, the greatest quote of all time, honestly.
I don't listen too much Taylor Swift.
I mean, like how do you top that? I mean, he's already reached his full potential, in my opinion, right there. So, no, but all jokes aside, yeah, I think you hit it on the head, Jacob. Like, J Money's got to be number 1 on your list. This is QB1 with 100% health, for all intents and purposes going into this year. So it's all in front of him, and we just got to see him do what he does. I mean, I don't disagree with any of these points in this article so far, and that's why I made the comment. I mean, it's pretty much a given. You're going to put J Money on your list if you're putting top 5 most important Packers. If Jordan Love's not on that list, then you probably don't know ball. Let's just be real. He's got to have a spot on this list. So we'll see what happens this year for sure.
Yeah, right. Like in that little interview clip of him, 6 years there, 3 years as a starter. I mean, chasing a Super Bowl is the goal. That's all that we want to talk about. That's bring Lombardi home. That's the idea, and it 100% starts with J Love. Get him, 100% back, and just, pedal to the metal at this point.
Yeah, I think the injuries played a very, very big role. He finished 12th in passer rating at a 96.7, right behind Jaden Daniels. Everybody talks like Jaden Daniels had this phenomenal year, and for a rookie, absolutely. But again, Jaden Daniels finished with a 100.1 passer rating. Jordan Love finished right behind him with a 96.7. Jaden Daniels finished with 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Jordan Love had 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. The reason I get excited over that is because the fact that he did that while playing hurt pretty much all year long, right? When you go to yards per attempt, Jordan Love finished 5th, actually tied for 4th in the league with Jalen Hurts, 8 yards per attempt. Completion percentage obviously took a dip down to 63.1% according to NFL Pro. And then when you look at EPA per dropback, which is a great measure, a great metric to kind of dive into, he's 13th at a plus 0.07, right behind Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, and then above them just by, minute amount of points, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. So he's right there, even with the injury. He's right there on the cusp of of being a top 10 quarterback, depending on what metric you want to look at. The big thing I want to see Jordan Love do this year, and we've been pretty vocal about it, is, that 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. I want to see him consistently stay in the 30 touchdown, column, I guess you could say, at that mark, while reducing it to single digit interceptions. If he finished with 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions last year, we talked about the key games that we lost because of the turnover differential and more specifically throwing interceptions. I think this team probably wins a couple more games last year. And when it comes to touchdown passes, he finished 10th in the league with 25, right behind Patrick Mahomes, who had 26. Josh Allen had 28. Guys, Josh Allen was the MVP. Now, I know he's got a rushing ability as well, and probably the best running quarterback that's not named Lamar Jackson in the entire league. Josh Allen finished 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Jordan Love finished 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and he couldn't run, right? Above him was Aaron Rodgers with 28 and 11 interceptions. Bo Nix, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Sam Darnold, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Jared Goff, 37 and 12. Lamar Jackson last year, how did he not win the MVP? Can somebody help me here?
Yeah.
41 touchdowns and only 4 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, what?
With like 1,000 yards rushing at the same time, or like 900 yards rushing.
We know who decides the MVP results, though, right? So I think we got our answer.
Yeah. Baker Mayfield, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. Joe Burrow, 43 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, with Joe Burrow throwing for 4,918 yards. What a year, man.
Wow.
What a year for him. So, again, the point there is Jordan Love battling 3 injuries, pretty much right on the cusp of being a top 10 quarterback. Some would say he is a top 10, depending on which metric you want to look at.
I think that's a great point, Clayton, because that's the bar that Aaron Rodgers has set, in recent memory here in Green Bay, right? Like you said, try to be over 30 in the Tutter category and try and be below 10 in your picks. Keep that TD to INT ratio, nice and wide, and more Tutters than picks. And, we have to remember Jordan developed his first few years behind Aaron Rodgers. He's seen that. He understands, seeing back-to-back MVP seasons and, elite level quarterbacking, what that looks like. And he certainly possesses all the attributes to be able to do that. And if not, meet the level that Aaron Rodgers has set as a standard here, he can probably exceed it if he really plays his cards right and continues to improve. So I don't think there's any reason to think that Jay Money's not going to take another huge step this year.
Yeah. CJN in the chat says, guys, 3 injuries from Love last year, and he still balled out. Does anyone think he isn't that guy? I've been pretty vocal. I think he's that guy. I think he is your franchise quarterback. I really do.
I've been saying that since 2020. Let's go.
So if he takes the step that we think he can, and I'm going to put a write-up together over on our Patreon group here real soon. I want to compare Aaron Rodgers' first 2 years statistics to Jordan Love's first 2 years, and then look at Aaron Rodgers' third year and kind of project, okay, again, we're not saying Jordan Love has got to play like Aaron Rodgers to live up to the expectations. That's an extremely high bar. If I remember correctly, his third year as a starter, too, would have been the Super Bowl year. So just saying, to kind of draw a comparison, I think you would be pleasantly surprised at just how well Jordan's played compared to one of the all-time greats in Aaron Rodgers. So anything else you guys want to add to the Jordan Love talk here on this list?
I would just argue that Aaron Rodgers came into a way better, well-rounded team than Jordan Love did as well, that had multiple weapons and very kind of set veterans that were leaders. And I think Love had to kind of work with a bunch of patched together type leadership roles and guys that were very young, hadn't came into their own. And then just to highlight what Ron says here, he says Jordan had 6 interceptions that could be considered all his fault. That's if everyone was running the right routes on 5 of those 6. I think he's trying to say that almost half of them were not his fault, which I would agree with. And if you were to plug and play those types of numbers, maybe give him a few more tuds, he's right there in the thick of things.
Yeah, I think it's a solid point for sure. All right, let's move it along to number 2 on this list, and that's Rashan Gary. A dominant pass rush is often a hallmark. Oh, I'm going to say this. This made me think of this real quick, Jacob. I'm sorry. You mentioned the receivers that Aaron had, right? They also had the number 1 defense in the league the year they won the Super Bowl. So just keep that in mind. So very, very important little little note there as well. Rashan Gary, a dominant pass rush is often the hallmark of Super Bowl champions, and Rashan Gary is the linchpin of Green Bay's defensive front. In 2024, Gary excelled as a run defender but struggled to consistently pressure quarterbacks. Remember that. Partly due to his transition from a 3-4 to a 4-3 scheme. The Packers' minimal offseason additions to the pass rush signal confidence in Gary's ability to rebound. With a full year in the new system and improved coaching, Gary must deliver on his significant contract and elevate the defense to elite status. Now, check this out. What do you think, without looking at the stats, and I've got them right here, what do you think TJ Watt's pressure percentage was last year? Quarterback pressure percentage, if you just had to guess.
12.
14.
12, 14, 10. What do you think the guess would be, man?
Oh, we're doing prices right. I'll go 13.
His quarterback pressure percentage, TJ Watt's last year, 9.3%.
Wow.
Boy.
Yeah. Guess what Rashan Gary's was?
14.
13. It was 13.4%.
Oh.
You're thinking, well, that's just 1 year, Clayton. That's just 1 year. Guess what Rashan Gary's pressure percentage was in 2023?
I've got a wild guess. I'm going to go ahead and just take a shot in the dark and say
65%.
65%. That's what Damn, I wish. 17.4% was his pressure rate in 2023. His pressure rate in 2022, 19%. That's Rashan Gary's quarterback pressure percentage. So, again, he had a higher quarterback pressure percentage than TJ Watt last year. Now, immediately, the argument becomes, yeah, okay, I got you, but what was his by the way, TJ Watt in 2023 quarterback pressure percentage, 13.7%. Gary has, and then in 2022, TJ Watt's pressure percentage, 11.6%. Rashan Gary over the last 3 years has had a higher quarterback pressure percentage than TJ Watt every single year. Now, the argument goes, yeah, but what about sacks, Clayton? I'm glad you asked. TJ Watt last year had 11 and a half sacks. You know how many pass rush snaps he had, though? 529. 529 pass rush snaps. Guess how many Rashan Gary had last year, finishing with his 7.5 sacks that led the Packers? Only 389.
Wow.
Yeah. And the year before is TJ Watt's big year, right, where he finished with, 19 sacks? Mm-hmm. Only 13.7%. And I say only. That's a good – anything over 10 is considered really good, right? 19 sacks that year. But once again, he had 512 pass rush attempts. Guys, he's playing 85% of the snaps, as where Rashan Gary is only playing 58.4%. He's playing literally 20% more snaps. So you want to know why Rashan Gary's sack total stays low? It's the rotation that we talk about in the pass rush. Because if you tack on another 20%, Rashan Gary's probably got 12, 13 sacks. You see what I'm saying? So I just wanted to point that out there. And again, it doesn't mean that Rashan Gary played his best football last year. I think he played one of his worst seasons. But with that being said, to pretend like it was a bad year, it was not a bad year for Rashan Gary, especially seeing how he led the team in run stops as well. So I get off my soapbox. Just wanted to point that out because I'm like, what are we even doing here? Let me go look at this real quick, right? Because again, if he, let's say he gets 3 or 4 more sacks, that probably means you may dip down 1 or 2 interceptions and lose a turnover
right.
for another game, right?
I was just going to say, what's more important to you as a fan? Is it takeaways or is it sacks? I would gladly give up, a couple sacks, even if they are, key moments where we need to get home and we don't. But if we're continuing to get takeaways and turnovers, man, I'll take it all day. I don't care about the sack percentage. I don't.
And in fact, looking at his stats, this is actually basically his second best year of his career. In 2021, he played 17 games with 51 total tackles, 31 solo, 20 assists, 11 tackles for loss, 11 and a half sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. Last year, 18 games, 50 total tackles, so 1 less, 28 solo, 3 less there, 22 assisted, 2 less there, and 10 tackles for loss, 1 less, with sacks of 8.5. So 3 less sacks and still had a forced fumble. So you're saying that he had a terrible year because he had 3 less sacks and in fact was just maybe a tackle off and less time with the reps there. So
he does this too, Emilio, while drawing the most attention, the most double teams of anyone else. on that team, other than the prefab touch spy double team that Kenny Clark kept engaging in last year, right? And that was kind of, you could tell that was somewhat schemed up by Hafley putting him in at that one tech in the nickel 4-2-5. Daryl also makes a great point for those who don't know. TJ Watt's still waiting for the front office to give him that extension or heads up. So that's the other thing. He's holding out right now of minicamp because he wants a new contract. Rashan Gary's in there getting to work in. Again, I'm not saying Rashan Gary is a better player than TJ Watt, but to sit here and pretend like TJ Watt is just light years ahead of Rashan Gary, I don't know what you're looking at.
I think arguably Rashan's got the higher ceiling right now at this point in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I think no disrespect to TJ Watt, the guy's a monster, but I think Rashan's got a couple more premier years in him as opposed to TJ Watt, who's probably dwindling down his career a little bit, right? Yeah. Next 3 to 5 years, probably.
Yeah. Robert Bertana says Rashan Gary all around solid pass rusher and can stop the run. I think that's very, very fair to say he's a solid pass rusher. You know, maybe I would put him a little higher than just a solid pass rusher, but you're right, man. There's some guys that just run themselves out of the play. That's something Gary doesn't do for sure. So, Jacob, what do you think about all this, man? What are we missing here with Rashan Gary? And again, he's not knocking him, and I think Gary should be on the list. Like if he plays even better than he did last year, watch out for this defense, you know?
Yep. This was a tough one for me because Gary did not make my top 5. And I think if you hear my top 5, you'd understand that reasoning. But I just feel like he's been really solid player, but I don't think he's a difference maker in the way that maybe like a Myles Garrett would be, or Von Miller in his prime, or one of those types of guys where it's like teams, Khalil Mack, they know where he's going to be. They're worried about which way he's going to go. They're worried if he's going to switch sides. I mean, I think that I can see, like Tim said, that his ability to have a ceiling type year is still way out there. I think that he could absolutely explode and all of a sudden have like a 10 plus, 15 plus sack season. I just think it's really tough because the bottom line is he just doesn't get the snaps. The number of snaps just aren't there for him as they are for most other pass rushers, and expecting him to do more with less snaps is just not realistic. For that reason, I left him off my top 5.
That's fair. And that's not an indictment on Rashan. That's an indictment on the system that he's in, right? We talk about the hockey line approach, rotational type of situation. So I agree with that, Jacob. I think that's a great point. It's not so much to say about Rashan. It's just how we're utilizing him and his role on this defense.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jacob mentioned people like Myles Garrett, right? 18.6 quarterback pressure percentage last year. And again, Gary's best year was in 2022 where he was at 19%. So that's how good Gary was when they gave him that contract. So, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback. People, they should have never gave him that deal. It's like he was doing crazy things that season for sure. So, all right. Anybody else got anything they want to add to the Rashan Gary section here? Anything at all? Good? All right, let's move on to the next one. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
I would just quick say, too, that on the back end, like, again, I referenced that Ryan's podcast where he looked at the pass rush in the back 8 games or whatever it was. Rashan Gary's numbers, I think, were, like, again, at like 16 or 17%, if not higher.
Mm-hmm. Greg Rice says, how many snaps? I'm going to need you to read this one for me, Tim. Can you read that for me real quick? You ain't got to turn your camera on, bub.
Oh, no, I see it. It says, how many snaps does Max Crosby get in a game compared to Rashan Gary? That's how it's pronounced, Max Crosby.
See if I can find Max real quick. I think he was he technically a linebacker? I hate that they do this. I don't know why people.
I think they had Crosby as an edge, right?
Yeah.
Is he listed as an edge or a D end or?
No, it's 2025 and we still got people saying defensive line and linebacker as opposed to just edge defender. It drives me crazy. Let me. I got to pull this up because I got to know what Max Crosby had here. Let's see. He's not listed as a linebacker. So defensive line, Max Crosby, 96.3% of the snaps last year.
Oh,
and he finished with 7.5 sacks and a 12% pressure rate.
And then when he got done, he took out the trash, he painted the fence, he closed up the gate, parked the cars. I mean, that guy does everything for the Raiders for sure. Wow.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Gary, I remember doing that on Twitter too. I just put no names, just production, Who would you rather have? It was hands down, all player one, player one, player one. All right, you just picked Rashan Gary over Max Crosby. Oh, that can't be right. Okay, go check it yourself. It's right there. Free for everyone to see. So